Welcome back to the XRP Insider Network. If you're here, you already know this channel exists for one reason only: to stay ahead of the curve before the rest of the market wakes up. Go ahead and lock it in right now. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications because what we're covering today is not surface level XRP talk. This is deep cycle, structural, momentum building information that could define the next major XRP phase. Now, here's the hook, and I need you to really hear this. XRP is quietly setting up one of the most compressed, tension-filled price structures we've seen in years. Not flashy, not euphoric, but historically, this is exactly how explosive moves are born. Most people miss these moments because nothing looks exciting yet. That's when smart money starts moving. Right now, XRP is sitting in a zone where buyers and sellers are locked in a silent tug of war. Price keeps holding higher lows. Volatility keeps shrinking. Liquidity keeps stacking above key resistance levels. This is not random. This is pressure, and pressure always resolves. What makes this moment different is not just the chart, it's the timing of the news, the regulatory backdrop, the institutional positioning, and the fact that XRP is no longer fighting for survival, it's positioning for expansion. Let's start with the technical picture because this sets the foundation for everything else. XRP has been defending a critical support region around the mid 180s to 190s. Every dip into this zone is getting bought faster. That tells us demand is stepping in earlier each time. When markets do this, it signals accumulation. At the same time, overhead resistance between roughly 210 and 225 keeps rejecting price, but with less force each attempt. Rejections are getting weaker, pullbacks are getting smaller. This is what compression looks like in real time. Historically, XRP does not drift sideways forever. When it moves hard, and compression phases like this often lead to violent expansions that catch late traders completely off guard. Now, here's where fundamentals start to reinforce the chart. For the first time in years, XRP is operating in an environment of regulatory clarity rather than regulatory fear. That alone changes everything. Institutions don't need hype, they need certainty. With legal uncertainty largely removed, XRP instantly becomes eligible for exposure through regulated products, structured instruments, and large capital vehicles that were previously sidelined. That's not speculation. That's how institutional markets work. And this is where ETF activity becomes important. When exchange traded products begin accumulating an asset, it signals something powerful. It means professional capital believes liquidity, compliance, and demand are strong enough to justify long-term positioning. Now let's zoom out because timing is everything. Crypto markets move in cycles, but within those cycles are moments where probability stacks aggressively in one direction. This is one of those moments for XRP. We're seeing a rare alignment between macro patience and micro catalysts. On the macro side, liquidity conditions are stabilizing. Risk appetite is cautiously returning, and capital is rotating, not chasing memes, but positioning into assets with real utility narratives. On the micro side, XRP is building energy. Let's talk about liquidity walls. Between roughly 2.20 and 2.25 sits a dense concentration of orders. This zone acts like a ceiling, but also like a launch pad. When price finally pushes through a liquidity wall like this with volume, it doesn't tiptoe higher. It accelerates. Why? Because short positions get forced to close, breakout traders enter, momentum algorithms flip bullish, and sidelined capital rushes in. This creates what traders call a liquidity vacuum. Price moves rapidly because there's little resistance above. That's why this zone matters so much. And here's the critical detail: XRP keeps returning to this level without collapsing afterward. That's strength. Weak assets get rejected hard and bleed lower. Strong assets knock repeatedly until the door breaks. Now layer in sentiment. Despite all of these bullish ingredients, retail sentiment around XRP remains cautious. There's no mania, no euphoria, no mainstream excitement. That's exactly how big moves start. Markets don't reward crowded trades. They reward patience. Now let's talk about the banking narrative, because this is where things go from bullish to potentially historic. There has been increasing discussion around Ripple positioning itself within the traditional financial system more directly than ever before. The idea of operating under a formal banking framework changes perception entirely. If Ripple gains deeper integration with the banking system, XRP's role as a bridge asset becomes exponentially more credible. Banks don't adopt assets lightly, they move slowly, but when they move big. Even the possibility of this kind of integration forces institutions to prepare. Preparation means accumulation, and accumulation shows up on the chart long before headlines confirm it. This is why you should never wait for confirmation in markets. Confirmation is expensive. Now let's address expectations because realism matters. Not every breakout happens instantly. Sometimes price fakes out first. Sometimes it pulls back to shake out weak hands. That's normal. What matters is structure. As long as XRP continues to hold higher lows and defend its support zones, the bullish thesis remains intact. And here's the part most people overlook. Even consolidation is bullish when it happens above previous cycle levels. XRP is not consolidating at pennies anymore. It's consolidating near multi-year highs. That changes the entire risk-reward equation. Now consider AI-driven forecasting models and long-term analyst projections. Many are beginning to factor in institutional adoption scenarios rather than purely speculative ones. When you plug infrastructure usage into valuation models, numbers change fast. Suddenly, $3 doesn't look ambitious, $5 doesn't look crazy, and higher targets become conditional rather than impossible. Does that mean it happens overnight? No, but markets don't need overnight moves to create life-changing outcomes. They need sustained trends, and XRP looks like it's preparing for one. Before we move on, let me say this clearly. Nothing here is blind hype. Risk exists. Markets can pull back. Invalidation levels matter, but probability right now is leaning in one direction, upward, and probability is what serious traders care about. If this breakdown is helping you see the bigger picture, make sure you're subscribed because what we're about to cover next is the psychology behind why most people will miss this move. Let's talk psychology because this is where wealth transfers happen. Most people don't miss market opportunities because they lack information. They miss them because of emotion, fear during accumulation, greed during distribution. Right now, XRP is in the accumulation psychology phase. Price isn't exciting enough to brag about. It's not painful enough to panic sell. So most people do nothing. That's exactly when smart money acts. Big players accumulate when attention is low. They distribute when attention is high. Ask yourself, how many mainstream headlines are screaming about XRP right now? Not many. That tells you everything. Now let's talk about breakout behavior. When XRP breaks through a major resistance zone, it tends to overextend. This isn't a slow grind asset during expansion phases. That's because of its liquidity structure and historical trading behavior. Breakouts often trigger multi-week momentum runs, followed by consolidation at higher levels. People waiting for pullbacks often never get them. This is why preparation matters more than prediction. You don't need to know the exact day or hour. You need to understand the conditions. And the conditions right now are tightening. Another overlooked factor, options positioning and derivatives markets. As expiration dates approach, volatility tends to increase. When price sits near key levels during these periods, sudden moves become more likely. This doesn't guarantee direction, but when combined with bullish structure, it adds fuel. Now let's talk about patience. Some people are frustrated XRP hasn't exploded yet. That frustration is a signal. Markets move opposite the majority's emotional state. When boredom peaks, opportunity emerges. This phase is not designed to reward excitement. It's designed to reward conviction. Now consider long-term positioning. If XRP succeeds even partially in becoming a dominant settlement layer, its valuation framework shifts permanently. It stops being judged purely as a speculative token and starts being evaluated as financial infrastructure. Infrastructure assets don't move in hype cycles, they move in adoption curves. Those curves are slow at first, then sudden. We may be closer to the inflection point than most people realize, and this is where preparation becomes personal. Nobody rings a bell at the bottom. Nobody sends a calendar invite for breakouts. They just happen. And afterwards, everyone claims they saw it coming, but only a few actually positioned. That's why we do this channel, to stay early, not loud. If you appreciate that mindset, lock it in. subscribe, and stay connected because now we're entering the final stretch where we tie everything together and talk about what matters most going forward. So let's bring it all together. XRP right now is not a hype trade. It's a pressure trade, technically compressed, fundamentally strengthening, narratively evolving. Those three forces rarely align, and when they do, outcomes tend to be outsized. The market is not asking whether XRP has utility anymore. It's asking how much of that utility gets priced in. And pricing happens before headlines, not after. This is why patience is being tested. Sideways markets drain energy. They shake confidence. They force people to question their convictions. That's by design. Strong hands are built during boredom, not excitement. Now, let's be clear. Nothing here suggests reckless behavior. Risk management matters, time horizons matter, but dismissing this setup entirely would be a mistake. XRP is quietly transitioning from survival mode to expansion mode. That transition is subtle until it isn't. When price finally breaks and holds above the major resistance zone, narrative will flip overnight. Suddenly, analysts will talk about missed opportunities. Influencers will claim early conviction. Retail will rush in, and the cycle repeats. The goal is not to chase, the goal is to understand. Understanding leads to preparation. Preparation leads to better decisions. Right now, the signals are not screaming, they're whispering, and whispers precede roars. So stay calm, stay informed, stay patient, because whether this breakout happens tomorrow or next month, the structure is being built right now. And structures like this don't dissolve quietly, they resolve decisively. This is the XRP Insider Network. We don't chase noise, we track pressure. And when pressure breaks, we're already ready. We'll see you in the next one.